going on, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and I'm back with another DM's Guild Spotlight video. This time, we'll be covering a Adventurers League module and a con-created content by the folks at, is it Cold Iron Conventions? Cold Iron Conventions, called Steamy Shores of Danger. Couple of things up front, as with all of these, this was provided to me as a review copy, so keep that in mind, but that being said, my opinions are my own. So I will go through the adventure. It is purchasable on the DM's Guild. Oops, you can see, there it is, right here. You can go ahead and purchase it for $4.99 to get a copy for yourself. Also, a piece of information here, all purchases in the month of October, 100% of the royalties earned from that will go to support Extra Life. So that will go to help kids in need. So that's pretty awesome. So if you pick it up within the next 11 days or 10 days by the time you see this video, you'll be supporting a good cause and also getting the module for yourself. So the only other caveat to this is it was written for Adventurers League play. So that being said, that comes with a certain stipulation to the formatting, which is not a big deal. It's actually a pretty nice formatting, all things considered. But that also has to deal with pacing and the way the adventure is run. Is designed from an Adventurers League standpoint, but you can obviously tweak and alter that as you will to make it fit into your game. So we can go ahead and check it out here on the DM's Guild. An urgent plea for assistance comes from the coastal vision of Jarko'tu'ta. That's how you pronounce it, because there's a pronunciation guide, which again, people, put those in your modules if you have wonky names for people. Traders are dead, canoes destroyed, bloodthirsty sharks spotted. A perilous canoe journey and fog-shrouded mysteries await adventurers. 2 or 4 hour, which is pretty cool because it gives you the option for both and how to adjust. For 1st to 4th level characters, brought to you by Cold Iron Conventions and Draxtar Games. In addition to the ability to turn any day into Shark Day, this standalone adventure includes official AL Magic Item Certificate, which we'll get to, gridded reference maps for key combats, printable icons to help track watercraft, and yeah, I think that's a pretty good description, so why don't we go ahead and pull up the adventure here. So you can see this is, again, the kind of fonts and design that's required by Adventurers League, which, if you don't have something very specific for your adventure, I would probably just run with this, because it's pretty good. I mean, it's easy to read and things like that, so I wouldn't, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, at the beginning here, we have 30 pages, and the last are kind of printables and maps and whatnot, but this kind of piece here is all DM's, or Adventurers League specific here, how to adjust the adventure. This is kind of standard language. Then we roll into the actual module itself. And really, how can you go wrong with an adventure where the first line of the adventure primer is a line from Sharknado? I mean, come on. So, here's our little background here. Tiny Moonsea village of Jarko'tu'ta. Between Elventree and Elmwood is a wonder of nature. Despite the cold and inhospitable climate of the Moonsea, geothermic activity keeps the air and water around the village warm year-round. Finding their trade with the mysterious habitants of nearby islands suddenly and violently disrupted, the typically isolated villagers are forced to send for help, and that's kind of where our adventurers are going to come in. We can see here a location summary for the NPCs as well as how to pronounce them. Most of them are relatively easy, but the, where is it? Jarko'tu'ta is the kind of hardest one with the J here, the main name of the city. And then we have our little adventure overview, so it is broken up into 4 parts, so we'll read through those, which is high level. Again, it's purchasable, so I'm not going to go through it line by line because I want you guys to still, if you like it, go out and pick it up yourself. It is also a copper bestseller on the DM's Guild. So part 1, characters arrive in the village and meet with the half-elf, half-earth Genasi villagers that call themselves the Wanao. Did I miss that? I don't see that up here in the pronunciation guide. That would be something I'd ask. So we're going to call them Wanao. They're introduced to the wounded guide, Arteo, who explains how their trade delegation was attacked while trying to cross over to Big Folk Island. That's part 1. Part 2, while trying to make the crossing, the characters must contend, that's supposed to be contend, a little typo there, I'm assuming, with being separated in the fog and a shark attack. Part 3, party is greeted by Chief Big Ear and the Big Folk, and challenged with the greeting of the Forefathers. If the party is successful in the social challenge, they find safe harbor with the furballs. If they fail, they are pushed towards a dangerous cove and asked to prove themselves. Part 4, the characters seek out the cove where an evil presence dwells. In the process, they meet Ida Barnaclebones and her Sahuagin minions. Also, Ida Barnaclebones, fantastic name. Alright, so here's some stuff about expanding the adventure. We have a little bit about adventure hooks, about how to pull people in. This was, I believe, also written under the old Adventurers League rule set, so I'm not entirely sure how that works when you need to update it to meet the new rules that came out in the end of July. And my furnace just kicked on, so I'm going to stop this real quick so I can shut that door. Alright, anyway, so I don't know how this anticipates with new AO rules, but we'll just have to go with what we have. So specific Druid, Emerald Enclave stuff, or other primal nature-based NPCs, or PCs rather, Faction Curiosity, or rebuilding the Moon Sea, which is a part of certain other adventures may have you go to the Moon Sea area. Want to know more? You can go to coldironconventions.com and see all of the adventures that can be purchased here on the DM's Guild, which we'll click this link real quick and see what we've got. All of these adventures can be purchased on the DM's Guild, not there. It wasn't a direct link. Here we've got what looks like a goblin shark. Very cool. Alright, so again, not going to go through all of this. I will go through the parts and I will read you sort of our little box text here, right? So 15 minutes. After spending a freezing cold night camped in the woods, your journey continues through fog that seems to grow denser and denser. The fog seeps into your clothing, making it easy for the wind to chill you to the bone. But the cold does not last, as after a while the fog grows warmer and you notice in places that steam is coming off the ground. The foggy forest gives way to a rocky, more open terrain. The morning sun cuts its way through the fog, offering a view of a village made up of strangely constructed huts. Seemingly made of a combination of mud, stone, and light wood, the huts stand on porous stone ground that is punctuated by pools of steaming water. Almost as if to announce your arrival, a large geyser near the center of the village erupts in an exclamation of steam and water. Lightly dressed humanoids approach you through the steam. And this is sort of your introduction to the characters here in the village of Jarko'tu'ta. And we have a little section on role-playing the villagers, and basically get to meet people and learn about the surroundings. So we can kind of skip ahead here. Some stuff about dealing with the NPCs. Again, potential spoilers here as well. I should have said that at the beginning, but we're going to read through the adventure, or at least kind of skim through it. So if you're planning to play this, there may be some spoilers. And again, we have our development section and our treasure section, things that are kind of a staple of every Adventurers League module. Okay, then we move on to part 2, which is the canoeing. And there's some pretty cool stuff around this. So, adventurers traverse dangerous waters on their way to Big Folk Island in canoes. So, basically it goes through the number of canoes available. Can be used to house a single person, but big enough to accommodate up to 3 people. With 2 rowing and a third in the middle. A canoe cannot carry more than 3 people. You can discern things about the canoes. And I really like this. There's a little sidebar about making harpoons, which I thought was pretty neat. So, also a good point. If there are new or inexperienced players at the table, this would be a great time to provide them info on fighting underwater, which is something that in most games I'd say doesn't come up too often. So it may be worth refreshing, and they even go so far as to give you a nice little page number here. Player's Handbook, page 198, because certain things don't work underwater. Certain items, like weapons, for instance, things are at disadvantage and all that, worth checking out. And then here's the making harpoons, and I really like this. So if the characters ask about fashioning a harpoon or more of the crude fishing spears, they may attempt to do so. A non-standard survival dexterity check, which is cool, right? So it's not using wisdom, it's using dexterity. With a variable DC is required. The characters do not know how successful their attempt to fashion a harpoon is, and you should not reveal the DC of this check. As long as the result of the roll is above 5, inform the player that they've successfully crafted a crude harpoon and make a note of their roll. In reality, this is what follows. 5 to 9, it's functional but flimsy and will break off after the first range attack attempted with it. 10 to 14 is functional but has a flaw and will break off after the second ranged attack attempted with it. 15 to 19, it is sturdy and it will not break from normal use. And 20 plus, the character created a sturdy harpoon and also notices one other character's harpoon is not sturdy, if any, and fixes it. This results in a harpoon also being considered sturdy. The bonus applies even if a faulty harpoon has been created. This basically has the functional properties of a spear. However, a character can use their bonus action to pull on the rope and retrieve it if it has been thrown. Due to the crude nature of the spear, they are not strong enough to allow the impaling and dragging of the target. These harpoons cannot be kept outside or used outside of this adventure, which is an unfortunate thing that is just sort of the function of the way Adventurers League work, but still a cool concept, because if you threw a spear or something like a javelin in the water and you don't get it back, it's gone. So, we travel through the Moon Sea, we have to make some survival checks, and there's a whole little table here about resolving the checks as you travel. And then the big kind of bulk of this piece here, the shark attack, which is pretty awesome. And depending on how you run this could get pretty tense and give you almost like a Jaws-like vibe. And I honestly would recommend probably watching Jaws before you run this encounter to try to get an idea for the pacing and suspense and how to handle all that kind of stuff. But there's a little bit about speeds, about how to outrow sharks, and sizing on a grid, and all this other kind of things nearby to allow for interesting combat scenarios. Here's how to adjust the encounter too. If you want to go upscale, because your party say level 4, you have more people, you can add more sharks of different types to make things a little more difficult. So let's assume at this point the party makes it through the shark attack. They make it to Big Folk Island here. The adventurers encounter a tribe of highly ritualistic furbolgs, initially using illusions of elves, must present themselves properly in order to be received. And I thought this was pretty cool because it has like a little prayer ritual thing that will turn into a story reward later on. So, basically, you can see what happens if the players try to figure out what's going on with these furbolg. Well, they don't know because they're elves initially. And if the characters try to talk about business or anything else, they're simply reminded to speak true of who you are and of your forefathers, and you may be welcomed. The greeting of the forefathers is simple and as follows. Part 1, name of the character. Part 2, name of father. Part 3, name of grandfather. Part 4, name of great-grandfather. And parts 5, 6, and 7 list some life accomplishments. So, roleplay. It also gets, it says it here, but a good way to roleplay, get your players talking. Only problem is if in the way, depending on how certain people play their Adventure League's character, if you're playing this in an AL setting, this may be something people just didn't care to think about because they're there to just play modules and leave. They're not there to truly flesh out their characters, which, that's how you want to play AL, that's how you want to play AL. I'm not going to judge you either way, so. Excuse me. He's quite perceptive. You could try to lie to him. Resolving the greeting of the forefathers social challenge. It's a group challenge. A character succeeds if at least 6 parts of the greeting are used and are all true. If the character lies and is noticed, they count as failure. If the character lies and is not noticed, they count as a success. If less than 6 parts of the greeting are used, the character must succeed on a persuasion check. The character gains advantage if it is accompanied by an appropriate explanation. If more than half of the party succeeds, the group is successful, otherwise the group fails. If the group check succeeds, all characters that succeed on their individual checks earn the Greeting of the Forefathers story reward, which we'll talk about at the end of the adventure. And there's some stuff if you fail. And if you succeed, you're welcome. Please find rest. If you fail, you don't get the rest. And then there's a piece about the village here. And then some stuff, just general stuff about furbolgs, basically what they have and their abilities, things that you could find if you had a copy of Volo's Guide to Monsters. And lastly is See No Evil, C spelled S-E-A on purpose, because if you didn't guess from the name Ida Barnacle Bones, we are dealing with a sea hag. After a short rest on the rocky shore, while failing in the social challenge, or their long rest at the furball camp, succeeding in the social challenge, the adventurers find their way to a cove where they discover a watery grotto. And there's a couple of different kind of traversal-based challenges here before you get to the hut of Ida Barnacle Bones, where you'll have to deal with her and her Sahuagin, God, that's so hard to say, minions, which are a Sahuagin, or Sahuagins and a Sahuagin priestess, and you can obviously augment that as necessary. And you kind of go through that and get yourself some gear, and at the very end, you can get yourself that sweet, sweet magic item. Again, I can't speak to how things are with the Adventure League rules now, but a cool figurine shaped like a geyser that is actually a decanter of endless water. So here's our little breakdown, our crib sheet, stat sheet here at the end. Rewards, you know how to do that. Here's how you deal out your experience. Minimum of 450, maximum of 600 experience each, based on all of these different things. And then treasure here, car figurines, 50 per PC, Ida's loot 200, Shark Friends reward, which we'll get to, is 50. Consumable magic items, permanent, and we have our decanter of endless water, 1 potion of healing, and the potion of healing is only in the 4-hour version, and then a spell scroll of protection from good and evil. Here's our greetings of the Forefathers. You have earned how to introduce yourself in a formal and impressive way during your future encounters with members of tribal cultures of Bigfoot Island or the village of Jarko'tu'ta. You may gain advantage on social checks if you recite your greeting during introductions. So that would mean you have to go through the greeting that you went through before, your name, your father, your grandfather, your great-grandfather, and life accomplishments. If you do that, again, probably specific to these adventures, and I'm not too sure how the Moonsea adventure situations work in AL, so I don't know how many of them there are and how much deals with these specific islands, but that could be pretty useful. Players earn downtime reward as described in the Adventure League DM's guide, and then DM rewards, you get yours as you go. And then here's our stats for our chieftain, our furball warriors, giant octopus, hunter shark, reef shark, Sahuagin priestess. Here's Ida Barnacle Bones and her deal here. And here we have some pretty cool maps, right? So here's our canoe crossing. We have some crabbing platforms here, and they show how they're elevated. And there's our canoe. And then here's our cove, but you can kind of see the sharks and an idea of what the map's going to look like. Here is Ida's cove, and there's her hut in the middle there. Here are some really cool ideas for if you wanted to do on a grid. You can print out your canoes, and here's some crabbing platforms you can cut and print out as well. Again, more stuff on the characters. And then here is if we wanted to expand the adventure to go from a 2-hour module to a 4-hour module. If they succeeded on the greeting of the Forefathers, they mentioned Shark Friend Who Left, daughter of Hunter Stonehand. Basically, searching out Shark Friend Who Left, that's the name of a furball character here. Characters make a new ally, rescue a friend, and find the location of the true evil on the island. So again, there's some grammatical errors within here. So we have Shark Friend Who Left, and her shark companion has been missing for several days, and she is very worried. So let's see what we can do. Here's a little picture of Shark Friend right here. And there's some stuff about building a raft to follow through the adventure and deal with Shark Friend Who Left's whole piece. And then, let me see here. At the end, the raft kind of finds its place, and let's see. Shark Friend comes a struggling, deep voice from the water. You must go. I cannot. The voice trails off as if interrupted, and his large, scarred fin charges the octopus as the other fins turn towards the raft. Please, please, Shark Friend, don't hurt him. So this is where you will deal with several sharks, her awakened hunter shark companion, which means it can speak, and a giant octopus. There's one Sahuagin in the water, and basically there's some, and I do like, and I wish more modules had this kind of stuff, like a tactical section. This is something, again, not to go on a rant here, but that I sorely miss from the old monster manuals. They would tell you in a standard combat with a certain monster, it uses X, it uses Y, it uses Z, kind of in this order, to give you an idea to do what you want. I guess it's maybe a 5th edition thing to sort of just, the DM does whatever they want, but it was nice to kind of have a standard MO for all characters or monsters that you throw at people. Anyway, so here is some stuff about saving her shark companion and how to do that. The final development, and then the last little bit, you get 500 silver coins from Shark Friend Who Left, and an intact scroll of protection from evil and good in a watertight scroll tube. And then here's our last little bit here. Here's our geyser figurine. And that is that. So if you were to download this as well, you'll get this file here as one PDF, and then you'll get another file with the AL cert for the decanter of endless water. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about Steamy Shores of Danger, an interesting little adventure set in the Moonseat region of the Forgotten Realms, but clearly adaptable if you don't want to play in an Adventure League scenario. One, you could play it as an Adventure League game and play it at home and get experience and get these things for your home, Adventure League characters built with Adventure League rules at home to then take to a convention or somewhere else to play with a slightly enhanced character. 600 experience points, or a minimum of 450, means you'd go from 1 to 2. Again, I don't know about new AL rules, but with the older rules, this would get you to at least level 2 if you were a level 1 character. And you could get yourself a magic item, a decanter of endless water. So something you could run it that way, or drop all the AL stuff and just transplant this as a sea-based encounter in your own campaign. The party has to go to a local fishing village or something of that nature, and you get to do a whole cool shark-based adventure. And the idea of the Awakened Shark Companion is really cool, because I feel like Awaken is a spell that doesn't get a lot of traction, at least in any of my experiences, and just shy of 4 years of playing 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. Awaken doesn't come up too much. A lot of people choose not to, because people always talk about casting it on their animal companions, but then the animal companion is sentient and kind of played by the DM rather than played by you, because it's its own creature and it can choose to argue against your decisions. But either way, it's a cool concept, and it's something that, even if I don't run this specific adventure, the idea of the talking animal that has been awakened to human or humanoid level intelligence is a pretty cool concept and an interesting way to alter or surprise your players. So if anything, I've got that takeaway, which is awesome. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. There'll be a link in the description if you'd like to click over on the DM's Guild to pick this up for yourself. And anyway, guys, I will see you next time for another DM's Guild Spotlight review.